My name is Jaime Teevan. I'm a researcher at Microsoft Research, and I do information retrieval research. So I hadn't done anything in computer science or even with computers really prior to college. So my freshman year, second semester, I took a programming course, and I really had a lot of fun building programs, and I thought it was more fun than writing papers, so I decided to take more computer science courses. And then I got into research because as I was taking courses, I had an opportunity to build these robots on a robotic soccer team. And we kind of trained the robots and taught them how to play soccer. And then we went to Paris for the World Cup and competed in this robotic soccer World Cup that was happening in parallel. And that was a lot of fun. So I study how people interact with information. One of the things that I do that's really interesting, actually, is I look at large-scale usage logs of how people use search engines or how people use social networks and understand the types of things people talk about and are thinking about and looking for. And then I use what I learned from that to build algorithms. And probably the work that I'm best well known for is personalized search. So I develop algorithms thinking about how we can use your past interactions with a search engine to improve your interactions in the future. And some of that work is actually shipped in Bing, which is pretty cool. So I developed the first personalized search algorithm that changes the ranking of results based on your past experiences. Microsoft Research is an academic research lab kind of embedded in a company. And I came to Microsoft Research for a couple of reasons. One, because I'm so interested in data. Being at Microsoft, the products that Microsoft has produce so much interesting data about how people interact with software and interact with search engines that it was really cool for me to be able to come here and explore that and play with that data. I also really like that the lab is so large. So at a lot of academic institutions, the computer science department is relatively small. And here there's hundreds of people, many of whom are doing the same sort of research as I do. So I have a lot of opportunity to collaborate with people and work with them on projects. I've had a number of really impressive mentors at Microsoft from a variety of different groups. My manager is actually a long-term mentor of mine. She served on my thesis committee, so I've known her for 10 years and reported to her for 6 years, and hope to continue for many, many more. I really value her input. She has a really good perspective on things. She always helps me see, if I'm trying to understand what somebody else is thinking about, she can see other people's point of view, and I really value being able to understand what other people are thinking about. I did my undergraduate degree at a liberal arts college. A lot of people in computer science I know come from technical colleges, and I think that it was really valuable for me in thinking about research. So as I understood computers and how they worked, I was really challenged to work on group projects and think about the story behind what I was working on. And that gave me an interesting perspective on research. And actually, surprisingly, in research, you'd be surprised how much communication is sort of a fundamental part of what we do. And the ability to frame what you're thinking about and share that with other people is really important. One of the challenges with sort of a lot of the early computer science education, at least through my experience, was a lot of it was very sink or swim. And you kind of get thrown in, and particularly because I didn't have a lot of background in working with computers. I think one of the intro computer science courses that I took assumed that you already knew Unix and you already knew C. And those were things that I just hadn't been exposed to before, and it was quite overwhelming. One of the things that was really useful to learn was, it was really useful just to learn how to acquire those skills for myself and how to go figure things out. I had been used to sort of people telling me everything that I needed to know, and it was useful for me to go figure out that I could get that information, I could get it for myself. It was also really useful to know that the other people who seemed like they were experts in Unix or knew everything about what they were doing didn't actually know that much more than I did, and helped me. I gained confidence as I sort of figured out that I could figure those things out, and they weren't these big scary skills that I didn't know. Obviously, there's very few women in computer science, and that can be a challenge. It can also be a benefit. So it's a challenge because you often stand out or you're different in some ways. You have sometimes different experiences. I find like if I'm in a room with a group and I'm the only woman there, if somebody swears, they might all turn to me and apologize when I don't care about it any more than anyone else. But that sort of standing out can be a really good thing, too. So when I attend conferences, everybody knows who I am because I'm the only woman there, or one of few women there. And certainly in school, all my teachers knew who I was and were able to give me good opportunities. And so it's an advantage as well as a challenge. Sometimes as a woman in computer science, especially if you're young and starting out in the field, you really have to prove that you have the chops to do the job. And I actually think that's a little bit what inspired me to get a PhD. I remember right out of college, I was interviewing for jobs, and there was this hedge fund that did sort of quantitative analysis of markets that I was interviewing for. And everybody was all excited that I was interviewing. It was a hard thing to get. And then they called me back and was like, oh, we'd like to consider you for a position in HR, which is, it was a great position and great opportunity, but it sort of demeaned my technical skills and what I had to give, what I thought were my skills that I had to contribute to the company. And it was actually quite satisfying to tell them, no, I'm sorry, I'm going to MIT on a National Science Foundation grant to go get my PhD. I have 4 young children. They are ages 4, 6, 6, and 8. They're all boys, so my house is very loud and very wild and often quite messy. And I think my children make me a better researcher and a better worker because they really force me to segment my life. And I go home every day at 5:30 and spend the evening with the children. And I think that that's really good. Actually, as a researcher, one of the things that's important is that you be to think creatively, is that you take breaks and you sort of step back and think back. And so they've been a really valuable for me in that way. I also really like that my job is so flexible and I'm able to be available when I want. And that can be, if somebody is sick, or for larger chunks of time, if one child is having a hard time and needs something from me, I can be available for that. My research really is my passion. So that's a pretty cool thing where my life experiences feed into my research. So I gave the example earlier of being inspired by seeing a friend search for information on her phone and thinking about how we ask questions of people. And I find that my life sort of bleeds into my work that way a lot. I've been really interested actually in how we use mobile devices in our family as well, like at the dinner table, that my kids will beg for the phone so that they can play a game, when we're out at a fancy restaurant. It keeps them calm and quiet. And it's interesting to see that the devices are coming into our social spaces. And so I started doing a research project around thinking about how devices can actually, instead of inhibiting our social interaction, augment it and make it better, so that when somebody takes out their phone, you're not like, oh, that's so rude, they brought out their phone at the dinner table. And instead, you're excited that they did it because it means it's going to be a better conversation. I really like that I am trusted to follow my passions and follow the things that I'm excited about and do good things in that direction, and given the opportunity to think about how I can translate that into something that will impact people's lives. And so it's really quite inspiring and scary to be given that much trust to say, we know you're thinking about good things. We know that you'll do good stuff. Go do it. Here are some resources. Here's the time. Go figure out something amazing. I like that a lot. It's really inspiring.